Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the City Council meeting for the City of Warrenville of January 20th, 2020. May I have a roll call, please?
Alderman Ashour.
Here.
Alderman Berry.
Here.
Alderman Bevere.
Here.
Alderman Davalos is excused. Alderman Goodman.
Here.
Alderman Krischel.
Here.
Alderman Widener.
Here.
Alderman Wilson.
Here.
Thank you, Emily. Would you please stand as you are able and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
When I was a kid, I would always wonder.
This is a part of our meeting we've set aside for citizens' comments. We have two folks who've signed up this evening. Mr. Kevin Morovic, if I got that right, Kevin, you can be first, and Bob Siebert second. Just come up to the podium, identify yourself.
My name is Kevin Morvick. I'm a regional manager for Siebert Landscaping, who has been the contractor for the last 2 seasons of the parkways and the islands up and down Butterfield Road here. I'm here to dispute the findings of the last bid for the landscape contract for this 2020 season. We think that we are the lowest bid. If you calculate our totals going down and get to the bottom of the grand total, we're about $400 less than the next bidder. And we had some calculated errors on the occurrence side outside of the grand total and the total that adds up to our grand total. We would like the ability to stand by our total for the job, the grand total. And if I read correctly in here, it says that it goes by the grand total would determine the lowest bidder. Just want to have the opportunity to remain a vendor of the city of Warrenville. We live, our office is right down the road here next to the FedEx building. We enjoy being part of the community and making the beauty of the roadways here too. That's what I have.
Okay, thank you.
Bob Siebert. Just want everybody to know that my company is different than his company, so that you don't get confused. In the Herald, there was an editorial on the task force for property tax. And what they stated was they really didn't do a whole lot of financial impact or really any background, yet they had 88 individuals and they met 35 times. The one item they were looking at is TIF allocations. I think they would have had an easier time if they'd have not looked at allocations, which probably will not have any effect on tax relief property, but looked at correcting a structural error in the TIF statute that, if corrected, would lower property taxes. If we look at TIF revenue, it can be divided into 2 areas: earned TIF revenue and unearned TIF revenue. The earned TIF revenue would be that revenue. If you look at the buildings in Cantera, for the revenue, there is a new building, a new taxpayer. Unearned TIF revenue is the 94-year-old house, TIF 3 that wasn't TIF 2, undeveloped property, residential property that's undeveloped, yet generates TIF revenue, unearned revenue. we look at TIF 2, which was from 1994 to 2009, there was $7 million in TIF revenue. Of that $7 million, more than $5 million was unearned TIF revenue. That unearned TIF revenue created in 2010 $500,000 increase in property taxes with no increase property payers. When I talked to Bill Farley in 2010, Assistant Superintendent for School District 200, in this room, I asked him that he was receiving $500,000, but he had actually not earned it through development. Bill smiled, said, "Bob, if someone's going to give me $500,000, I'm going to take it. But if we add up the 500,000 times 10 from 2010 to now 2020, that's $5 million of taxes, unearned taxes, without new taxpayers. And then we add the $5 million that was created from 94 to 2009, we have $10 million in one TIF district of unearned TIF revenue. In DuPage County, there are 55 TIF districts. Each of these districts will have some of the problem with the structural error, which is creating additional taxes with no additional payers. In the state of Illinois, there are hundreds of TIF districts. So I guess the state and the municipalities, before they change a function, they should correct a function so that it is actually operating according to how it was designed back in 1976.
Thank you, Bob. We'll move on to official and staff comments, beginning with the mayor. One thing tonight, again, a reminder that the 2020 census is about to be in progress. There's an opportunity for those of you who might be looking for some extra work. There's a Meet with a Census Job Recruiter at the Library event coming up on Wednesday the 22nd. That would be this week, from 1 to 6 p.m., again, at the Warrenville Public Library. You could be part of the census effort and earn up to $29.50 an hour for your efforts. Making your own schedule, working in your own neighborhood. You get paid weekly. You get 1 week's paid training. It's a good job for retirees, college students, or anyone who'd like to earn a little extra money. You just have to be 18 years old, a U.S. citizen, and have access to a car and a computer. So again, if you're at all interested in some side work as a helper on the census effort, Wednesday, January 22nd, 1 to 6 p.m., there's an event being hosted by the Warrenville Library that could give you the information you need to become part of that effort. And that's all I have for this evening. Clerk?
Thank you, Mayor. A sign of spring, Warrenville in bloom, went the other day and ordered the flowers for the hanging baskets and the bridge planters. So I think, Christina, maybe 60 days left, so we're counting. Looking forward to it, thanks.
You're not alone. Treasurer?
Nothing to add.
Alderman Goodwin?
I want to wish everybody a very happy Martin Luther King Day. And in honor of Dr. King's legacy, hope that we are all doing what we can to promote tolerance as well as nonviolence today. I want to announce the History of Women in Warrenville event, which is going to be this Sunday, January 26th at 1:30 at the library. It's a free event, but please do register on the library website. It's a presentation to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, which is the amendment that allowed women to vote. So it's going to be talking about how women in Warrenville history shaped our town. Should be very interesting. I also want to remind everybody that there is a voter registration event tomorrow at 6:30 at the library. If you haven't registered to vote, here's your chance. Bring 2 forms of ID, and there will be people from the League of Women Voters there to help you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman. Anyone else? Very good. City Administrator?
I have nothing to add tonight, thank you.
Thank you, John. And City Attorney?
I just wanted to mention that Holland and I recently on January 10th hosted a roundtable for police chiefs and other police department leadership regarding cannabis related law enforcement after January 1, which legalized recreational cannabis. And I wanted to just thank Chief Toronto for attending that roundtable. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Brooke. We'll move on then to approval of the agenda this evening. Alderman Widener.
Motion to approve the agenda for the January 20th, 2020 City Council regular meeting.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any changes to the agenda? Alderman Goodman.
Yeah, I'd like to remove item 6B as well as item 6D.
Agreed?
Agreed.
B and D. Okay. Then I would, we have a motion to amend the agenda for this evening. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The agenda is approved as amended. We have several sets of minutes that need approval also. Alderman Widener?
Motion to approve the minutes of the January 6th, 2020 City Council regular meeting, to approve the minutes of the January 6th, 2020 City Council closed session meeting, and to approve the minutes of the January 13th, 2020 Community Development Committee regular meeting.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion of those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The minutes are approved. The consent agenda as amended for this evening. Item 6A, accept Community Development Committee recommendation, waive second reading and pass ordinance 02020-04, documenting the city's intent to enforce no parking fire lane restrictions on private driveway areas within the Vanguard apartment project. C, accept Community Development Committee recommendation and pass resolution R2020-02, waiving competitive bidding and approving a contract with V3 companies for environmental remediation services for the CCRS number 1 off-site environmental remediation project in an amount of $55,400. E, accept Community Development Committee recommendation and approve the Warrenville Park District's November 19th, 2019 permit fee waiver request. F, accept Community Development Committee recommendation and accept the plan to retire the Acorn Van program effective April 10th, 2020, and allow riders into the Ride DuPage program at the age of 60. G, accept Community Development Committee recommendation and approve the amendments to Section 2 of the City of Warrenville Personnel Manual effective immediately. H, accept Community Development Committee recommendation and accept the Census 2020 participation grant in the amount of $3,650 and authorize staff to execute the grant acceptance form. I, accept Community Development Committee recommendation and designate Alderman Goodman as the backup City Council representative for Alderman Berry and Davalos to the Warrenville Complete Count Committee. J, receive and file minutes of the Environmental Advisory Commission regular meeting held on November 20th, 2019. K, receive and file draft minutes of the Plan Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals regular meeting held on December 19th, 2019. L, receive and file report of invoices paid up to January 15th, 2020 in the amount of $620,870.32. $870.32. M, authorize expenditures for invoices due on or before February 3rd, 2020 in the amount of $374,697.09. And N, receive and file report of debit card expenditures for the month of December 2019 in the amount of $10,309.00. Alderman Widener?
Motion to approve the agenda is presented by Mayor David Brummel.
Second.
Motion and a second. May I have a roll call, please?
Alderman Ashour,
Aye.
Alderman Chrisell,
Aye.
Alderman Widener,
Aye.
Alderman Wilson,
Aye.
Alderman Berry,
Aye.
Alderman Goodman,
Aye.
Alderman Bevere.
Aye.
Thank you, Emily. We'll go back to item 6B. Alderman Goodman, would you like to bring that forward?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to accept staff recommendation and pass Resolution R 2020-01, awarding the bid for the mowing and landscape maintenance contract to Landscape Concept Management of Grays Lake, Illinois, for an amount not to exceed $124,925.
Second by Alderman Berry. Alderman Goodman?
Yes, I'd just like staff to address the question that was brought up by Mr. Moravec in the citizens' comments about the lowest bid.
Okay. Phil Kukler, our deputy, can't read it. Public Works, that's right.
Yep.
How could I forget?
Okay, when I opened bids last week for this project, Siebert was the apparent low bidder by about $400, as Mr. Moravec mentioned. As I do with all bids, after we open them, I go back to the office and I enter them into a spreadsheet and check the math on them. And the way we evaluate bids is the unit price control. So if you are going to charge $10 per cubic yard of mulch or something like that, it's the $10 that is the controlling item. So if you have $10 times 50 yards and they put in there 100 and did the math wrong, put in 100, or it should be 500. 500 is actually the number. You've got to make sure the calculations work from the unit price on, and then once you make that math part of it, you add it all up, and that's what the grand total that controls and will be evaluate the bid. It's not unusual for bidders to make mistakes in their math. It seems like every bid opening there's one or two mistakes on bids. Usually they're not of any consequence. They don't affect the order of the bidders in this case because it was a close bid. It did change the low bidder from Siebert to Landscape Concepts Management. Instead of Siebert winning by like $395, Landscape Concepts Management won by like $2,000. So it was relatively close. I did, after talking with Mr. Moravec last Friday, checked with the city attorney, or Thursday I think I talked with him. I checked with the city attorney and ran this by her just to make sure she was comfortable with the way I evaluated the bids based on the contract language, because that was the Holland and Knights template contract that they developed for us, and she confirmed in that conversation that the way I evaluated the bids was consistent with how she would evaluate them.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, may I have a roll call then, please?
Alderman Berry,
Aye.
Alderman Widener,
Aye.
Alderman Chrisell,
Aye.
Alderman Wilson,
Aye.
Alderman Ashour,
Aye.
Alderman Goodman,
Aye.
Alderman Bevere.
Aye.
Thank you, Emily. We'll move then to item 6D. Alderman Goodman, did you wish to bring that forward?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to accept the Community Development Committee's recommendation and pass Resolution R 2020-03, approving a policy concerning attendance at City Council and City Council committee meetings by video or audio conference.
Second.
Second again by Alderman Berry. Discussion, Alderman Goodman?
I just wanted to have the opportunity to discuss a few of these things because it hadn't been in writing before. For example, the language of the resolution mentions that it is a policy to authorize electronic attendance by aldermen at meetings of the City Council and standing committees. But because it's about members of the committee, I think that should be rephrased to include the mayor, because the mayor is also a member of both of those bodies. I also think that we might want to consider, as a council, whether we want to expand this policy beyond just the state law required piece of it, which is about voting members, so that there's something in the policy about attendance by other city officials or by staff, and how that might be done in a situation where it's appropriate for the clerk or a member of staff to participate electronically. I also think that this form of notice, just from a practical perspective, I can't imagine, certainly if there's an employment purpose for the business of the public body that requires someone's absence, they would have time to fill out this form and submit it ahead of time. But if there's personal illness or if there's a family emergency, I really can't imagine someone doing that. So I think we need to be maybe a little bit more permissive in our language about this form and in the form itself, and make it very clear that it could be filled out after the fact or by the clerk if somebody so requests. Something to that effect, just to make this a little bit more practical and a pragmatic policy that people will actually be able to use. And lastly, I have a question for staff about the implementation of the policy, which is if we can get information after the fact, just to the members of the council who might be using this policy, as to what number we're supposed to call in, how our audio equipment or whatever would work so that we can make somebody on a phone heard. If we have that figured out yet, I'd like to know. Maybe we don't. We were having issues with the audio equipment. I understand that. But if we're adopting this, I just want to know how it's going to be implemented. So those are all my thoughts and questions. Thank you.
Okay.
I think I could just speak quickly to the notice requirement, just to make sure if we were to amend it, we would amend it according to your wishes. Currently, the policy as written would require the submission of that notice, but it does say that if the member is unable to give the required written notice prior to the meeting, the member shall notify the clerk by other means, and she'll submit the notice as soon as practicable afterwards. The thought behind the notice, the written notice, is that it's just a way to keep sort of consistent records, and that if someone writes in and says, I can't attend tonight's meeting physically, can I call in? It's just a cue to remember to ask which specific reason it is, because that is a requirement under state law that you have to give one of the eligible reasons to participate electronically. So it certainly isn't required by state law to have that written notice, but that was the thought behind it.
Okay. Assistant City Administrator White, did you have a comment also?
Yes, I just wanted to address the actual implementation of it. We're still working through how that's going to work with setting up a phone line at the dais with a conference calling number. We do have that capability with our new phone system to set up a conference call, but we don't currently have a phone line that is available at the dais. So we're working through that with our consultants to try to get that set up as quickly as possible. So the details of what number and how to call in, all of that will be provided as soon as we have all of that determined.
Okay. And then the suggestion, which I thought of too, the mayor should probably be included in this, as sometimes I'm a voting member, not all the time, but, so is everyone okay with? Yes.
You are included in the policy. It's the language of the resolution should just be amended to include you.
Okay,
But the policy does cover you
okay.
as written.
And then the suggestion that staff be included, who would like to address that? Administrator Coakley?
Thank you. This probably leads right into a legal question, but the keys with the alderman and then making explicit that the mayor is included also, those are all part of the quorum. You, of course, are the policymakers, the voting members. I believe, and Brooke, please correct me if I'm wrong or confirm if I happen to be right, you could allow any other person to call into the meeting, but we aren't officially counted. We don't count as a quorum. We don't count as present. We don't vote. So if any staff member, the city administrator, the city clerk, the treasurer were away and you wish to have them listen in on the meeting, I think that that is a prerogative of the council. We could add that to amend the policy to just make that clear, but we could not, we wouldn't be counted present for anything that really, you could put there electronically in the meeting in the minutes, but we don't count towards your majority or making that decision or legal for voting purposes or for having a meeting to have.
So we're already able to do that?
Yes, yeah, thank you for clarifying what I'm trying to say. The words are there, just not in that order. Thank you.
Alderman Goodman?
Okay, I mean, I think it might be appropriate to add one line in here saying that staff can do so without the formalities. I mean, we could certainly include them in the procedures of, well, we noted in the minutes that the city administrator was present via phone or something, but he wouldn't have to have a reason. So we don't want to have a policy saying, here are the situations where this is okay, because that implies that no other situations are okay. So it just seems like it would be a low effort, good change.
Okay. Everyone in line with what's been suggested? Okay.
Procedurally, again, to the attorney, can this be adopted tonight? I'm anticipating that Alderman Davalos may be interested in calling in next Monday for the meeting, and of course, then it would require a council meeting to adopt the policy. So can it be amended based on what's just been said? We'll get the correct policy out, or how's that gonna work legally?
Regarding the policy, if the motion would be to adopt the policy, approve the policy, with the amendment that a sentence be added allowing staff, the treasurer, and the city clerk to participate electronically, and that the minutes should reflect that, I feel the policy can be adopted tonight if that would be the motion, and the motion would be approved. And we can amend it after the fact in writing.
So would you like to amend your motion then?
I would, and anything that I might need to say about amending the resolution, the draft resolution? Because that's in the motion too.
You could add that in
pass.
your motion as well if you want.
Okay, then
and
I
I'll
would,
prepare.
like to make a motion to amend my motion to include the edit to the resolution, including the mayor, and to include an edit to the policy, which would make staff and other officials also able to attend meetings this way.
Okay, is there a second for that amendment?
Second.
Alderman Berry, okay, so now we're voting on the amendment to the motion, correct? Oh, question? Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Wilson?
I just have one question. It says a public body shall mean city council and all standing committees. I'm not sure, which are the standing committees that we have? Is that plan commission?
No.
No, it's not.
Those are commissions, right? These are only our three committees that we have
Right.
that meet every other Monday night.
Okay, I just wanted to
Committee of the
confine
wholes,
it.
right.
It doesn't include all the other
No,
environmental commissions, et cetera, et cetera.
these
Okay.
are committee of the whole operations with the whole city council.
Thank you very much.
City Administrator Coakley?
I would just make sure that everyone is clear that if I think you wanted to have the clerk or the treasurer, because they're not policymakers, they're not the alderman or the mayor, also included along with staff. I think that was understood, but. I think I said that. Okay, I missed that. The other, just to answer the question that kind of was hanging out there from Alderman Wilson, we did quickly look at whether boards and commissions could be covered by this, but logistically, we're not set up to try to do that. So we're gonna start with the mayor and council, with council and committee meetings, get our feet wet, and then we could see if it needs to be expanded. I'm sure that question will be asked at some point, so I'll just address it head on right now. We just don't have logistical ability to do that in all the other buildings, or even necessarily with Plan Commission right now. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, so we're voting on the amendment to the motion now. Roll call, please.
Sorry, 1 minute here. This up a little bit. Okay. Alderman Berry.
Aye.
Alderman Widener.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Krischel.
Aye.
Alderman Ashour.
Aye.
Alderman Goodman.
Aye.
Alderman Bevere.
Aye.
Okay, now we have an amended motion in front of us. Any further discussion? Seeing none, may I have roll call again, please?
Sorry. It wasn't. Alderman Krischel.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Bevere.
Aye.
Alderman Berry. Aye. Alderman Goodman.
Aye.
Alderman Davalos, Alderman Widener.
Aye.
Alderman Ashour.
Aye.
Thank you, Emily. The motion carries. We have nothing under regular agenda. We have no unfinished business to attend to this evening. No new business is enumerated, but, and we do not need a closed session, so we have one last motion that is required before we can go home, and I'm not going to drag this out too long. Alderman Goodman,
I move to adjourn.
Second.
second by Alderman Wilson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you so much.